Hello and welcome to another episode of the HubScale podcast. This week's amazing guest is Tyler Shields, fractional CMO, startup investor, and also an instructor for the executive MBA program at Chapel Hill. Tyler, it's great to have you on today.
Oh, thank you, Connor. Good to see you again.
Just so for our listeners who don't know who you are, can we have a quick introduction on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So the first half of my career, I was a cybersecurity research engineer, writing code at all sorts of really cool startups and cybersecurity companies. Second half of my career, I was an analyst at Forrester Research and then became chief marketing officer at a couple of very successful cybersecurity startups over the last 10 years or so. Recently left one of those startups that was doing very well and hung a shingle out doing fractional CMO work specifically for cybersecurity infrastructure, application development style early stage startups in the seed A and B range. Simultaneously to that, I run my own cyber investment firm for cyber angel investing and do some advisory work on the side as well.
It's a very impressive background. So realistically, what started you and what made you get into cybersecurity from the start?
I mean, that story goes back to middle school, and I'll even show you. I keep it back here. I don't show this to too many people, but that's actually a photo of me programming a Commodore 64 in about, I don't know, fourth grade or so. And yeah, I mean, I've been a computer hacker. I hacked in middle school and high school, and kind of fell in with the group of cybersecurity experts that were kind of really inventing cybersecurity in the late 80s, early 90s. And these folks went on to start all sorts of cybersecurity businesses and technologies, wrote the first IDS technologies that are out there in the world. They invented a lot of the cybersecurity that we all live in day out in this market. And so, yeah, I've been doing it since middle school and high school, and have maintained friendships with all those people and got to grow some really great businesses over the years.
Wow, that's awesome. And with your CMO, realistically, what inspired you to pursue a career in that?
I describe it as an accidental CMO. I really had no desire to be a CMO. So I was an analyst at Forrester Research at the time, um, and a contact of mine from a company called Signal Sciences reached out to me, and he basically was like, hey, how do I work with analysts? Was what he said, and I was an analyst, and I was like, all right, well, give me the pitch, tell me about the product, tell me about the tech. They were 12 people, about 300,000 in revenue, and had just gotten their A round at that point. And I said, yeah, the best way to work with an analyst is to hire one full time, like I said it half jokingly. And he said, well, we need somebody to run marketing. I said, no, I'll be your head of strategy or something. I don't know how to do marketing. I've never done it. And he's like, well, you can be the head of strategy and marketing. How's that? I'm like, all right, give it a go. And turns out I have a knack for building go-to-market engines, because I don't approach it like a general a traditional marketer. I
Hmm.
approach it more as an engineer would, because I'm an engineer, right? First.
Yeah.
And it turns out that approach to building go-to-market engines for younger companies is really valuable. That a lot of people don't understand how that all inner works. And so I did it successfully at Signal Sciences. I've done it successfully at a number of companies since then, both as an advisor investor, now as fractional CMO, and also did it to build a company called Jupiter One recently,
Hmm.
um, from zero to a very, very strong valuation in the market.
No, that's fantastic to hear. And like you say, being an Axel CMO, but it's worked out. And like you say, having that background in engineering clearly has made a difference in throughout your career. So with that being said, what are some of the main challenges you've actually faced being a CMO and how have you actually overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got different challenges in their career, right? And sometimes those challenges are personal to who you are as a person. And sometimes they're, from a capability standpoint, what might be in your DNA. I've never been a great design person. Like, I know what I like. I can look at something and say, I like that better than that. But if you tell me to sit down and design a logo, or what colors should we pick, like, I'm horrible at that. I'm just not, I'm not that mindset, right? Um, and so that's just a good example of an area where you recognize your deficiencies and then you backfill those with people who are really good at that, right? And there's a number of deficiencies. That's just one of many deficiencies I have as a marketing leader. But the idea is, what you're good at, You surround yourself with experts that augment and complement what you do very well, and then you rely on them. You don't micromanage them. You don't tell them how to do their job. If they're really good at what they do, you let them take ownership of it and you let them run with it, and they just soar. If they're good, they're going to just really soar. And so that's generally how I've built the culture of my teams and the companies that I've built is, hey, you're better at me than these things. That's why we hired you. Own it, right? Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to have to present it to me and show me why it's
Mhm.
going in the right direction. And I watch what's going on, but I don't get in people's way. Let them run, and that's what's worked for me to build these orgs.
No, it makes total sense. Like you say, you hire people who are experts in what they do, let them do it, and like you say, they're going to just soar
Mhm.
at it if you give them the freedom to do that. And
Yep.
with the current market conditions we're seeing right now, it is a bit of a crazy place. What would you recommend companies should be doing to stand out with their marketing?
Mark, one thing I will say is don't, and I think a lot of first time technical founders fall into this trap. Don't think of marketing as a silver bullet. A lot of people think, hey, okay, I need to do marketing. That is a single campaign that we're going to send out and see what returns. And sure, that is a piece of marketing. But if you can't measure it, if you can't distribute it, if you can't determine what your messaging and collateral need to be to match your ideal customer profile, and then measure which customer profiles hit it, like there's so much more to it than just fire and forget kind of marketing. And I think that's the biggest trap that people fall into when they're trying to market a cybersecurity organization or firm, is they just try to stand out by firing that noisy gun and say, hey, I'm the big guy right now, and here's my splash in the pan. And it might work as a splash in the pan, but to maintain that approach to it, you have to have
Hmm.
massive marketing dollars, because you're just going to be firing bullet after bullet after bullet after bullet. What you
Yeah.
need to think of marketing as is a compounding engine that builds on itself over time, and you get through referrals, you get pushed through to people who then influence other people, and you watch that thing build over time. Once the engine's working the right way, it compounds its growth, and then when you fire a bullet, it speeds up the compound, right? And so it's about firing the bullets at the right time and then measuring the results and having it compound as an engine. Most people don't approach marketing that way, and that's why they don't stand out in cybersecurity, where everybody's doing just the noisy garbage.
Yeah, like I say, it's a very noisy space at the moment, and I think that's some fantastic piece of advice what a lot of startups, I'm guessing, should take on. So, with investing, tell me how you actually got into investing into startups.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always loved business. I went back to business school at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and did my MBA there. And I now teach there, as you mentioned earlier. I teach there as a professor as well. Um, I think uh, when I had my first success on the CMO role at Signal Sciences, when I left that one, I had a lot of inbound interest. People saying, "How did you do it? How did you build a brand there from nothing? Like what's the sauce?" I thought I knew what the sauce was, but I wasn't sure. So I started working with a number of companies and as an advisor, and just
Hmm.
helping them, like, you give me a little bit of equity, I'll meet with you once a week. We'll work your game plan, figure out how we take my general knowledge and put it into your space, and we can make it work. And I found that I had a knack for it. Like the companies I was working with, I guided them in the right direction, and they started popping out the other end and winning. I'm like, oh, all right, well, there's a skill set there. And it turns out that if you give to others, others give back to you, right? And
Yeah.
so on a lot of those situations where I had advisor slots and was helping companies just sometimes for nothing, like I would meet with them weekly for like 6 months for nothing, just because I enjoyed the learning process for myself. They would then go, hey, we're raising our A round. We're going to carve off an allotment. Do you want any of the angel? Do you want to get in as an angel there? And it's like, yeah, sure. I believe in you guys. Like I've worked with you for 6 months now. I know what you're going to do. And then I started investing my own capital into that. I started taking these advisor slots. And then once you get a couple exits that show, 4, 5, 10x return, you get to take that capital, invest in more. And it's just been a process over the last about 8 to 9 years where I've continued to compound that model.
No, that's fantastic. With that being said, clearly you've got a knack to finding some startups who you actually see the potential of growth and the outcome being 5 times, 10 times X. So, what do you actually look for in companies when you actually go to invest?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Because investing is hard. Like I have
Yeah.
I have losers on the record that have gone to zero, right? Like that happens. Um, I think for me, because I've been in cyber my entire career, like I've literally followed it since the birth of cybersecurity in the late 80s, early 90s. I have a unique perspective. And then as a market analyst for Forrester, I have a very unique perspective on what I think is going to work technically. I also have a master's degree in computer science, so they can't snow me on, like, I can talk assembly language bits and bytes and rootkits and anti-debugging techniques. I can nerd out with the best of them, right? And so it's hard for people to blow smoke at me on whether the tech actually does what they say it does. And so the ability to marry the tech capability with where I think the market is going from like a market trends perspective
Mhm.
really gives me a unique way of investing there. And then the third thing, the most important thing, is, do the founders have what it takes to execute on that vision? And those are the three things I try to make sure kind of align. And if all three get me excited, that's where I put my money.
No, that's awesome and great bit of advice. And with that being said, like you say, you've been into cybersecurity since the 80s and since the dawn of time, realistically. What?
Don't make me sound that old, Connor. Come on.
Sorry, my apologies on that, Tyler. Is there a specific space in cyber which you are heavily focused on now, or can see booming or growing exponentially compared to the rest?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be an investor if I didn't have investment theses, right? So if you go to the cyberwhy.substack.com, it's a Substack that I write with a weekly newsletter of what I read this week every Friday. A little bit of snark, a little bit of fun, easy reading, maybe some cool links coming in every Friday. I also try to write one thought leadership, like deeper thought leadership piece per month, at least one. And you'll start to see some theses being outlined there, right? In particular, I'm really excited about application security being reinvented right now. I'm very excited about API security as a massive growth opportunity in the very near future. And I wrote a piece called The Atomization of the Application. And then I wrote another piece about API security, and go read those pieces and you'll understand a couple of reasons why I think those are great investment theses. There's just been, I look for technology shifts, massive technology shifts. The move to cloud was the most recent one. Everything going to cloud meant that everything in cyber had to be reinvented how they work in the cloud. So that was a ton of really important investments for me. Applications, the atomization of the application is another tectonic plate that is shifting. How does that now impact AppSec? How does that impact serverless security, cloud security? Okay, let's take those technology changes and say, here's what's going to happen in security to meet those changes. That's how I approach it, and I write about it in the Cyber Why.
No, it makes total sense. Like you say, API and application security are heavily growing. APIs, it's still one of the smallest niches inside, but it's heavily growing, heavily funded. When we're keeping a close eye on it ourselves, because it's getting big, it's getting exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to
And
be massive growth area. I think that's one of the biggest areas in the next 3 to 5 years.
100%, 100%, completely agree on there. And with that being said, how has the landscape in cybersecurity, in startups specifically, evolved in recent years?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think if we did, the biggest impact on the growth of security startups and startups in general is free money, right? Like when resources are potentially free or essentially free, it allows you to take massive chances to run over a market and dominate a market, right? And so we saw this glut of spend in 2020 and 2021 where capital was free. The cost of capital was nearing zero or very near zero. So let's just raise $100 million, $200 million in a situation where it might cost us 10 million to build the business. And let's just go try to run over a market and go to 100 million or 200 million of revenue in a heartbeat, right? And Wiz did exactly that. That's exactly what Wiz did. They were the fastest company, I think, in history to get to 100 million in ARR. They did it in like 18 or 24 months or something ridiculously quick.
Wow.
And I don't know the exact numbers, but they put out a blog post about it. You can read it yourself to see the details. But that was happening, and now the landscape is very different. The capital's not free anymore. Capital has a cost, and you have to run efficient businesses again. And so I think fundamentally the idea of how to run a business in a macroeconomic situation that is not free capital is new to a lot of startup founders, because they've only seen the playbook of low cost capital for the last 10 years. That's all they know. And so I think there's going to be a steep learning curve. You're going to see a lot of deaths of early stage companies that just don't make it. But the ones that do are going to be the ones where the lump of coal turns into a diamond because it's been under severe pressure when it was born, right? And so we're going to see some big, really good companies come out of this compression. And so, yeah, I think fundamentally how to build the business is the biggest learning curve that most entrepreneurs have to learn today.
No, I completely agree with you. Like you say, a couple of years ago, even like you say, 2020 and 2021, a lot of companies were mass dumping, hiring exponentially, and it's a completely different market now. A lot of hiring freezes, a lot of layoffs, which is unfortunate. But like you say, there will be some deaths, but there will be some fantastic diamonds what come out of their end.
That's right.
Hmm. And now, like you say, you are a fractional CMO, investor, and now an instructor at the Executive MBA program at Chapel Hill. Where has this come about, and why have you got into teaching?
Um, so I mean, if you look at my career arc, which I outlined a little bit earlier,
Hmm.
you know, the first half of the career, I was the tech guy. Like I was living in my basement office, not even seeing the sun for 7 days at a time, writing code, you know, hardcore. Um, and you know, I went back to school because I wanted to change. I wanted to be different. I wanted to do something different, and it had nothing to do with it being a bad career. It's just not what I wanted anymore, right?
Hmm.
And so I went to business school as my way of making that transition. And so foundationally, business school for me has been a massively important piece of my life, right? It's taken me from what I was doing to what I wanted to do. And I think when I was, excuse me, given the opportunity by one of my mentors at the business school. He was the gentleman that runs all of the entrepreneurship side of business school. Um, when he gave me the opportunity to take over one of his classes as an adjunct professor, I jumped at the chance to do it. Um, Mostly because now I'm looking at all of these folks who are at that point in their life who are making those big life decisions from a career perspective, and for all of them, it's going back to business school, right? That's not cheap. That's an
Yeah.
investment, and I wanted to be there to help them pop out the other side as a better version of what they can be, right? And so listen, you don't go teach as an adjunct professor to get rich. You go teach for the reward of helping others. And honestly, that's the best part of what I'm doing.
No, it makes total sense. And like you say, you're heavily passionate about cyber and how it's done for you and what your career's taken. And like you say, investing in your education. And I take my hats off to you for going back and actually helping them people out and helping everyone get where they want to be in their lives. And that's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear.
Yeah, that path is not for everybody, Connor. Like I
No,
know tons of people that are super brilliant, amazing people and workers and business owners and entrepreneurs that never graduated high school, right? Like
yeah,
there's lots of paths to success. My path involved 2 master's degrees because that's how I learn. Everybody's got their own path, but you know, if I can help somebody find that path, whatever that is, I really love doing that. I love helping others get better.
no, that's fantastic to hear. Really awesome. And you clearly have a busy life, work lifestyle. How do you actually manage your time efficiently and keep up with everything? Like, just curious to know for myself, realistically as well.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, I only left Jupiter One back in December,
Mhm.
you know, from a full-time position. And I'm a nerd, so I'm an engineer. So the very first thing I did was load up a time tracking system that I've been tracking every minute of every workday, as far as where I put my time, what revenue it brings in. Like I'm treating my life like a business. Um, and so for me, it's like, okay, now that I know I have now a month and a half, 2 months worth of time tracking, I know where I'm spending my time, I know what's generating revenue and what's not. I'm refining that as a business. And so that's how I do it. I approach it as an engineer might approach refining your business. You know, it's just kind of my DNA. And so yeah, I track my time and then I say, okay, I'm spending too much time wasting whatever on administrative work in this capacity. Let's find a virtual assistant to take care of that so that I can spend more time with my family or go golfing on Saturday or whatever the case may be. Quantified self, I guess you could almost describe it as.
No, that's fantastic. Chris, some great bit of advice, and I'll take that in consideration myself. Thank you for that. What is some of the best advice you've had throughout your whole career from some of the mentors or the people you've worked alongside?
Yeah, it's funny. My son's now he's 18 and he's looking at going to college, and we just did a tour, accepted student tour at the University of Alabama, and they had a couple of professors, three professors, and they asked that exact question of three professors in front of all these, like, I don't know, 500, 1,000 admitted students who were standing there or sitting there. And it's funny, two of them had my exact recommendations. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not that stupid after all. Recommendation number one is follow your passion. And for me, I've done that since day one, right? I wanted to be a hacker. I became a hacker. I wanted to go back to business school. I went back to, like, I always just followed what I was excited about doing. Right now, I'm excited about fractional work, investing, and writing the cyber why. That's what I enjoy doing. So that's what I'm going to do. So follow your passion is number one. Um, the second one is just show up. That's my advice. Just show up. So many people think they want to do something, they get excited about it, and they stop showing up for whatever reason. Going to the gym is a great example. I want to get buff, so I'm passionate about it. So I do it for a month and then I stop showing up. Literally, if you show up every single day and follow through with whatever your passion is, you can turn it into a massive business. It's
Yeah.
possible. Education is the same way. I told my son, I said, look, when you start as a freshman, never skip a class. As long as you're not an idiot, if you never skip a class and you do every piece of work they tell you, you will get great grades in college.
Oh yeah.
If you're an idiot, different story. But he's not an idiot. So just show up, dude. Literally, it's all you got to do. And so I think those are the two biggest pieces of advice. Follow your passion and just show up every single day. That's it.
No, it makes total sense. That's some fantastic piece of advice. Like you say, showing up even on days where it's hard. I myself, I've tried
Show
a few
up.
stuff, and yeah, you just got to keep showing up. There's days when I don't want to
Mhm.
go to gym. You just show up. There's days when you don't want to work, but you just show up and get through it. And like you say, you do
Yep.
what needs to be done, and you will be successful.
That's it exactly. Just show up.
And with that being said, where do you see yourself and your career going for the next 5 years?
That's a great question. I mean, presuming I continue to have the passion here for fractional work, I will continue to do this indefinitely because I'm enjoying it right now. I'm really loving it.
Hmm.
But I think for me, my 5 to 10 year vision is to grow 90 Degree Ventures, which is the overarching business that houses my investments, my fractional work, everything under 90 Degree Ventures. Grow that into more of an investing business with continuous returns, and
Hmm.
potentially grow a bigger personal fund there, and then retire into full-time investing.
Perfect. That sounds like a fantastic plan, and I wish you all the best for that. And like you say, you've had a successful career. I'm confident that that will all happen.
I'm passionate about it and I'm going to show up every day toward it. So I'm pretty sure I'll get there.
Exactly. Like you say, anything you think our listeners could take away, if there's one piece of information which is vital for them to know from this, what would be?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, certainly follow the passion, just show up. I think are the top two things.
Yeah.
Um, one thing I didn't really say is I'm a big believer in karma as well. If you have available time, if you have available cycles, and you find it rewarding, give to others. Because it helps other people, which is just a fantastic feeling in and of itself from a
Hmm.
reward perspective. But I have found that just giving and not expecting anything in return tends to return massive returns for you, right? That's how the entire idea of 90 Degree Ventures came, because I wanted to help other companies. So I just started contacting companies and saying, hey, I'll help you build your go-to-market for nothing, no cost, whatever. 6 months later, they're giving me advisor roles and they're giving me allotments from investment. And all that came from me not having really a goal, just wanting to help others.
Yeah.
So give to others, be passionate, and just show up every day.
No, Tyler, that is fantastic. And it's been a pleasure to have you on today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Connor.
No, it's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Sounds good.